So I wanted to make this video to talk a little bit about what it's like living with persistent depressive disorder. I wanted to share some of the symptoms that I was facing that led me to actually seek help to go out and get a diagnosis. And I also want to shine a light on what it's like living with persistent depressive disorder, but being on the other side as someone who's been going through treatment, someone who's been on antidepressants, and could share a little bit about what that experience has been like. So if you've recently been diagnosed with persistent depressive disorder or dysthymia, or if you're wondering like, do I have depression? What are some of the symptoms that I should be looking for? Should I go and speak to a professional to get help? Hopefully this video can help shine a light on that conversation for you so you don't feel like you have to go through this journey alone. Lastly, I want to state that I'm not a medical professional in any capacity. I'm just a dude talking to you on a camera in his office, sharing a bit of my story and my experience. So without further ado, let's get into it. If I was to try to explain what persistent depressive disorder is like to somebody who doesn't have it, it's kind of like having this consistent low-grade hum or like a sense of existential dread that there's just this general pointlessness to everything. And you can be having the best week of your life or the best month of your life by any metric. You could be, totally happy. You could be married, in love, get a promotion at work. But if persistent depressive disorder kicks in, you can't help but just feel like there's an underlying pointlessness to everything. If I was trying to explain what it looked like visually to somebody, I would think it's kind of like editing a photo in a professional photo editing software like Photoshop. I'm going to show this on the screen so you get an idea of what I'm saying if you have no idea what this stuff is. In professional photo editing software, you don't really want to do a lot of edits to the base image itself, and you use what's called layers. Layers are where you can implement changes, and if you decide later in your editing that you don't like certain changes, you can turn them off or delete them. However, in the case of persistent depressive disorder, it's kind of like an image that has a layer on it that you just can't turn off. And it's something that you just live with. And you feel like, I guess this is just life for everybody else too. And it's just constantly there. The crazy thing is that according to the National Institute of Mental Health, it can take an average person up to 10 years to actually acknowledge that they have a mental issue and to seek help. And that's been the case in my situation as well. I mean, I'd spent so many years trying to do things to fix my mood or to do little experiments in self-care and mental wellness, the things that, you hear about on the internet or anytime you read, whether it's, journaling, talking about your feelings, mindfulness activities, going for a walk in the sunshine, like all of those things tend to be good solutions, especially like if you're not suffering from something like persistent depressive disorder. But the crazy thing is with this layer, like I said, in a Photoshop that you just can't turn off, no matter what you do, it's like you just can't escape it. So I don't want to spend a ton of time going into the medical definition of what persistent depressive disorder is, because there are people on YouTube who do way better jobs at it and they're actually licensed professionals. But I want to talk about some of the symptoms that I faced and talk about where the turning point was for me, or the breaking point where I finally said I need to reach out and I need to get help. One of the big symptoms that I experienced was insomnia. Now, a lot of people deal with struggling with sleep because, they say you could be on your phone too much, getting too much blue light, or maybe you're drinking too much coffee. And I'd done all the things to try to help me get better sleep at night. I've made a general rule that I don't drink caffeine after 12 noon unless it's like a rare case. But for the most part, I'll only have 1 cup of coffee a day now. And I've cut back significantly to get there. And that wasn't helping. I did all the things around removing blue light and all the things they talk about if you're on your cell phone and, you just need to be off of devices an hour before you go to bed so you can sleep better at night. I've tried that. I've tried journaling and writing all the thoughts down, because a lot of people might be like, well, you're just stressed because you're thinking about all the things you didn't get completed in your day, I guess. It's not like that when you have persistent depressive disorder. There was a lot of times where I'd go to bed, even if it was late at night, like 1 a.m., and I would wake up at 4:30 or 5 a.m., just wide awake with this overwhelming sense of dread and anxiety and stress. And I could be having like the best week of my life by the metrics looking inward. If you're on the outside looking at my business, for example, as a self-employed person, be like, oh, he's got his stuff together. He's got a healthy relationship with his fiance. He's got his finances in order and all those things. Why would he be stressed? And that's the thing with persistent depressive disorder. It kind of just takes over and you can't really get out of that rut no matter how hard you try. The big thing that made me start looking for actual help was that I'd lost interest in the things that bring me joy. I love playing guitar. I love to read books. I love playing video games, all the things that most people my age do. And I just couldn't for the life of me do the things that I enjoyed doing. Like, I love to read. I go through so many books, and when I'm going through the real hard times with persistent depressive disorder, like, it's a chore. I would try to read and get one page in and just close the book, and my mind wouldn't let me process it. It would just stop taking things in. If I tried to pick up my guitar and play it, it's not that I was bored. I just had no connection to this thing that brings me joy. And that was like a really kind of scary moment for me, because I took 6 weeks off of work after I had to wind things down with a business partner. Things ended kind of badly, and I decided to take 6 weeks off to recharge, to take a vacation and just get connected to the things that matter to me. And during that time, when you think you would be relaxed, I actually went through what was called double depression, and I also experienced a major depressive episode as well. And that was the moment that really pushed me over the edge. I remember talking to my therapist and saying, like, I'm doing all the things that we've been talking about over the last 2 years. I'm being aware of the things that trigger me. I'm journaling. I'm doing all the tactics, but it just feels like there's some underlying force that's working against me, and I can't describe it, and it's driving me insane. And when I had that moment of it, saying that out loud to him, I think that was the first time I actually acknowledged how I was feeling. And as soon as it came out, that's when I just had that realization that it's time. Like, I had to go and get some sort of testing done. Shortly after that, I found a company in town that does testing for ADHD, for depression, cognitive function, just learning more about myself. And I just went in with no expectation other than test me for everything. Let's try to figure out what's going on here. And it took about 2 weeks to get the report back from the person I was working with. And the hardest part was waiting those 2 weeks to hear back. And my fear was that, what if she says there's nothing wrong with you and this is just how life is for everybody else? And that sucked. Like, that was so scary to think about, because when you have persistent depressive disorder, or if you live with depression, it's not as simple as just be in a better mood. You're just having a tough day. You need to pick yourself up. Like, you can do all the inputs that people say to do that normally help people out, and you can't get out. It's kind of like you're in this mud pit and you're just clawing, trying to get out. You can see the ledge. You can see like where the ground is. But as you grip and try to climb, you just slide and slide and slide and can't get out of the hole. That's the hard part about persistent depressive disorder. There was a couple other symptoms that I faced as well, including a constant sense of hopelessness and pointlessness to things. And thankfully have never had to deal with suicidal thoughts, and I can't imagine how much of a burden that is for somebody who has that on a regular basis. And by all means, like, if you're watching this video and you have any degree of suicidal thoughts, please, please, please speak to a professional. You do not have to face this alone, and there are treatment options available. And even if you don't have suicidal thoughts, there are treatment options available for these issues. The crazy thing is that it's been so like demonized or stigmatized as there's something wrong with you if you have a depression or a mental health issue. But in fact, it's no different than if you are a diabetic and you need insulin, or if you fall and break your arm, you're going to get a cast. Like, there are things you can do to help alleviate the suffering and the pain that you're going through. And with that said, let's move into like light on the other side of this tunnel, because I'd really like to bring the conversation up and at least provide a glimpse of hope for you, even if it feels like it is so far away and so impossible to even comprehend. So after I went in for my report with the person I was working with, that's when I found out that I have so many of the symptoms for persistent depressive disorder. And I immediately went and talked to my family doctor, who has a background in psychiatry and working with people with mental health issues. That was the main reason I actually picked him. I called and started asking, like, hey, I'm looking for a doctor who's got a background in dealing with mental health stuff. Because to me, it's like, I need to find someone who's just going to not judge me, and someone who's going to help me through this process, someone who understands it and isn't going to judge. And that was so important to me. So when I went and started working with him, he walked through everything. He was asking a lot of questions. He was very understanding. There was no judgment. After that initial meeting with my doctor, he prescribed me Zoloft, which is an antidepressant. And I'm actually working on a full playlist of videos to talk about depression and treatment, things that I've been going through, and what my experience was like going on Zoloft. So if that video is not out yet, hang tight, subscribe. It'll come soon. And when I went through it, there were some side effects for sure. But after 57 days, I noticed significant difference. And if I could tell a younger Marcus one thing, I would say, dude, you should have looked at this way sooner than you did. You shouldn't have put it off for nearly as long as you did. You shouldn't have felt so guilty about it and thought like, oh, maybe I'm just not good enough of a person. Because at the end of the day, there is help. And it may take a little bit of time to find the right solution for you. And I lucked out. Like, the very first antidepressant that my doctor gave me is the one that's been working for me. And there's no shame to be had if you have to go that route. This whole, oh, big pharma's evil, or antidepressants will get you hooked, or they're going to numb your feelings and you're not going to have any feelings at all. Like, there's so much misinformation out there that if you actually talk to a doctor, if you work with a professional and treat it as partnering with someone to help your health get better, then you're only doing things that are going to help, period. It's not a big scam. And I just wanted to say that because, especially as a guy, like, we don't talk about our feelings that much. We don't talk about what we're suffering or what we're going through. We think there's some sort of like nobility in being tough on the exterior, and it's weak to talk about your feelings and shit. And at the end of the day, the suffering is not worth it. And if you can have relief from what you are feeling, if you can experience pleasure and joy again and not wake up at 4:30 in the morning all the time or deal with insomnia nearly as bad, why would you not go for that? Why would you not at least explore, is there some sort of solution for me here? So that's what I wanted to share. That's what I wanted to talk about in this video today. I know it's a lot to take in. And if you've recently been diagnosed with persistent depressive disorder, or if you've been dealing with dysthymia all your life, leave a comment down below. I'm a firm believer that the best way to help change the world and help other people is through conversations and through stories. And the more we collectively bring our experiences together and our wisdom, the more we can help other people who are newer to the journey as well. Thanks for watching this video, and have a great day.